Lies of P, released September of 2023. Available on Xbox, PlayStation, and PC platforms. Retailing for $59.99. Lies of P is a Souls-like based very loosely on Pinocchio. But where Pinocchio was about one author's hatred of children, this game is about a city that falls into ruin by using technology it did not fully understand. You play as a puppet in the game that has just woken up. You look considerably more human than the other puppets. Most of the other puppets look and move like some kind of clockwork, but your movements are more smooth and organic. Apparently, the rest of the puppets have rebelled against the humans they serve, having somehow defied this world's equivalent of the 3 laws of robotics. And early on, you may think the whole game will be putting down this puppet rebellion. However, after the first major boss fight, you will find out that is not the case, as shortly after that, you will find out something else unique about your character. Unlike the other puppets, you can lie. And your first lie, which you are forced to commit, allows you access to the game's hub world. Here is where you will interact with the vast majority of NPCs. Here you can level up with the Blue Fairy, talk to your creator, Geppetto, listen to records that you collect, have access to a number of merchants, and of course, upgrade your weapons. Unique to this game, you can do more than just upgrade your weapons. You can switch around the business end and the handle of all the weapons to create something somewhat unique. Doing this will affect the use of the weapon, and also affect what stats the weapon scales with. You can also modify each handle to scale with different stats, meaning that if you're comfortable with a weapon, you can modify it to be appropriate for whatever your build is. Here you can also create and upgrade your secondary weapon. These take the form of your left arm. You start out with one that just punches and cannot be upgraded. But there are 8 arms to choose from, some of which do elemental damage. Some provide a ranged attack, and one is mostly defensive. You can only carry one arm with you for the majority of the gameplay, but you can switch them out at checkpoints. In this hub, you can also upgrade your character with pieces of quartz that you find. You won't be able to get every upgrade that is on offer through quartz, so choose carefully, and get skills that are reflective of how you play. Shortly after this hub world, you find out that there's more than puppets going wrong in this city. People are turning into zombie-like creatures, and apparently these zombie-like creatures blossom into more Lovecraftian abominations. And yes, you will find out that this happening to the people is tied together with the puppet rebellion, as both of these are apparently effects of the game's currency, Ergo, which is apparently some manner of blue crystal that was discovered, and is apparently the basis of all the fantastic technology you see before you. Unfortunately, there is not a lot of discoveries to be made by the player, and I mean that both in terms of story and gameplay, as everything unfolds in a very linear fashion. You will always be in one area that leads to the next area. You will never have an option of where to go next, and details of the story will always be spelled out to you by NPCs. Unlike most Souls-likes, you won't be poring over item descriptions and obscure pieces of dialogue to piece the story together. Everything will be spelled out to you in fairly blunt fashion, as will every major goal. Great, you made it to the hotel. You should go to the factory to see if that's what's causing the problem. The problem wasn't there? Okay, well you should go see the Puppet King. The Puppet King wasn't the problem? Well, go to the Grand Exhibition and see if something there is causing this. And I'm not even sure why NPCs need to tell you to do any of this. There's only one path forward. It's virtually impossible to be at a loss of what to do next. And it's not just that the sequence of areas is incredibly linear. When you're inside each area, they themselves are quite linear. If you believe you've found a branching path, it will become clear that one of the paths is very, very short, and will lead to a dead end. Most of the time, this dead end will be made open to you along the other path, as it is a shortcut. The only real choices you have to make in this game are your equipment, and when the game presents an opportunity for you to lie. After all, this is based, albeit very loosely, on Pinocchio. But the thing is, you don't usually have an opportunity to lie for your own personal gain. Instead, you're given the choice to tell someone a comforting, kind lie, or a very blunt and harsh truth. Do you tell the old woman that runs the hotel that her age and disease have ruined her beauty? Or do you tell her she's still beautiful? Do you tell a soldier that their partner died fighting? Or do you let them know that their partner became a monster? And in most of these situations, it honestly feels like the correct thing to do is lie. But that isn't the way the game feels about it. In terms of difficulty as a Souls-like, this is one of the easier ones you will find, as the majority of enemies and bosses have an elemental weakness you can exploit. Lovecraftian monsters are usually weak to fire, puppets are usually weak to electricity, and if you're having trouble with any of the bosses, you can summon an NPC helper, and you have the option to bring items to throw, and throwing items at a boss does a ton of damage. So is Lies of P worth your time and money? Well, it is a different kind of Souls-like. It's very linear, and the story is explained to you fairly bluntly. The combat is fairly good, and there is a ton of customization in your weapons. There is a fairly good amount of side content you can tackle too, helping NPCs with their various goals. The rewards for them aren't necessarily great, but oftentimes their stories are more interesting than what's going on in the main story. Given the Victorian setting, this has obvious comparisons to Bloodborne, and while I don't think this is quite as strong as Bloodborne, I do think it is worth your time, as despite being a linear experience, it kept me wanting to see what was going to happen next. How much worse was the world in this dark retelling of Pinocchio going to actually get? And were the various lies I told going to ultimately catch up with me? There is a painting of you find, made by a Mr. D. Gray, and when you lie, the nose on it grows. And honestly, wanting to know what the resolution to that was going to be did motivate me to keep playing. So yes, I do think Lies of P is worth your time. Is it worth the full $60 price tag? I think about $40 is just about right for this particular game. You know, wait till you see a sale on it. Please do subscribe, comment, like, and tell your friends.